All right, welcome back, guys. The late game. With me again, ReDeYe, JaKaTaK joining hosts in Control Destiny and myself. We're going to now move into the Legacy of the Void topic. Jeff, you want to give a rundown of the sentiment that has been shared by the community with the recent changes proposed for Legacy of the Void and just the overall perception of Blizzard's actions?
Yeah, I think if you follow the major forums like Reddit and Team Liquid and kind of genericize, if that's a word. Anyways, if you make it all the same, I don't know. Sometimes I'm clever, sometimes I'm not. Usually I'm not clever. The general feeling is there, at least what's being upvoted and what's kind of being shouted from the highest hilltops right now is that there's frustration, disappointment, anxiety, just general disarray of like they're very upset that they don't think Blizzard's listening to them. They don't think they're implementing really exciting ideas. I know this is partially propagated by comments from even like Total Biscuit, who said that it feels like something. This is not a direct quote. I don't have it in front of me, but something along the lines of, it feels like they're scaling back from the big changes they originally made with Legacy of the Void and kind of showed off in the early stages of the closed beta. And then, you know, there's people talking about, like, with each update, they're upset about this or that. So it's just, if you go to Reddit, more so in days past, right now it's a little bit more positive, but in days past, they were pretty upset with just this idea of them not being heard. And that's actually addressed right now. They just came out, David Kim released something talking about the changes in Legacy of the Void. And he actually went bullet by bullet on examples where they heard the community or players and literally did try to implement changes directly because of that feedback. And he said that those are just a few of the examples. So they kind of actually took, I don't want to, again, I'm not putting words in Blizzard's mouth, but from the response, it looks like they were a little bit, their jimmies were a little bit rustled. They were kind of like, hey, whoa, we are listening, and we did make changes, and, you know, like, a lot of this is for you guys, and we want this to be the best for you, too. So it's been a little bit of a back and forth, and if you were watching the show earlier, we kind of touched on this sentiment, at least, and I'll speak for myself, and then the guys can speak for themselves as well. But like, I even posted on Reddit where I was like, "Hey, like, look, this closed beta is going to be going on for like the greater part of a year. Like, it's a fucking long closed beta. They've come out with a patch almost every like bi-monthly. It feels like quite often. And yeah, there was more aggressive ones, and then there was some pretty moderate ones. But I was saying, like, hey, hold the horses. We're not on a doom clock just yet. And I got, not that this is like one of the most unamazing. It's like, guys, on YouTube, some people said some mean things to me. I couldn't believe it. Wouldn't you have it? But like, it was funny because I thought this was a pretty like just a very tepid thing to say on Reddit. And I got some guys who were like, ha! Once again, Blizzard's little fucking PR boy. And I was like, oh shit, like I didn't know I was that. And then they were just very, they thought that I was trying to mask and sell out and protect and stuff. And yeah, and I was like, no, actually this is pretty much my opinion. And StarCraft is kind of like my main livelihood in existence. So like if there was somebody that had problems with it, it would be me that would voice those problems, fighting for my own livelihood. You know, I'm actually genuinely pretty okay with Legacy of the Void and the direction it's going. So that's my long-winded spiel, but that's where we're at right now.
Yeah, well, someone said, will Steven be there today? I said yes, and I got downvotes. So that's fucking Reddit. Yeah. But no, that's a pretty good summary of what's going on. So from that, you know, JaKaTaK, what do you think are the most valid concerns of the community?
I think it's really difficult for me, and I'd really like to get your all opinion on this. It's really difficult for me to see the whole chat system being implemented and losing all of these features that we used to have. Like, we used to be able to move the chat window to wherever we wanted. We could make it big or we could make it small. We had control, and now we don't have that anymore, and it's very small. We used to be able to see who's in the channel without having to type anything out. Like, I feel like it's so difficult to not see the new chat system as a step backwards, and it feels lazy. And I hate saying that. I absolutely, it's not the conclusion I want to jump to, and I'm not saying it's absolutely the case, but it feels like it's just sort of like, well, we're gonna bring this Heroes of the Storm chat system into StarCraft 2, you're going to gain this one feature that you wanted, which is you get automatically entered into channels, and you lose all of the other features you used to have. I feel just like
But that
if you're
shit was
going to
so.
make that change, wait until you add in the other, like if you're going to say, okay, we're taking the Heroes of the Storm chat as a base and we're going to build on it. Like at least get to the point where you're not taking any features away from what we already had before you implement that into the beta. That's at least how I feel about it.
I can agree with that. I think that, on one hand, the reaction a lot of people said, like, this is fucking terrible. There was a thread immediately, like, give us our old chat back. Now, me, from someone that actually relies on that chat from the tournament that I run, I need that chat to be functional because you cannot manage 30-something people sitting in there and chatting with that new system. But at the same time, there was that whole like, well, obviously this isn't the end of it. So I'm curious why they put it in when they did. But overall, there were some people who thought, oh, this is fucking terrible. This is what we're stuck with, that kind of thing. There's that hyperbolic group of people, and then there's the one like you that's like, why'd you do this without it being done? You took away a lot from us. So, chat was a big one. What are some other things? They've recently released patch.
I feel like
go ahead, Steven.
Something to keep in mind with the chat. This is kind of weird because I love chatting on Blizzard more than anybody. But I actually think that the chat thing is one of the more positive things. It might seem like it's shit right now, but not to be like a total Debbie Downer, but Blizzard is obviously like very concerned about Heroes of the Storm, and they really are going to spend a lot of time and money and investing engineering hours and shit into getting that game to being something that's really good. So I think that one of like the best things you can hope for StarCraft 2 is we start to see some of the improvements since it's built on the same engine, and the client and everything I think are the same as well, or it like comes from the same source. Like I mean, seeing things being ported from Heroes of the Storm to StarCraft, I think is something that even if it's kind of rough around the edges right now, I think that I have more hope for a successful chat system in StarCraft 2 based off of the same one going on in Heroes, rather than them maintaining the old chat system from StarCraft 2 and expecting them to keep up two separate projects, right?
Well, I think it's a really good way for them to cut down on the amount of work that they have to do, and it'll be really good. It's just that I would be excited about it if it was an improvement. But
yeah, I mean, right now it's probably
it's not right now, and it's very, very frustrating that they decided to do that.
Well, like how frustrating? How often do you chat inside Legacy of the Void?
Every day, all the time.
For
I don't know.
Checkmate, Destiny.
Let's be real. Like the average person, like how long do you honestly chat inside Star? I feel like not very many people are like talking to people inside of like Legacy of the Void.
Well, it makes it really difficult if I'm like meeting up with people to train or trying to like meet up with people to play games with on my stream or something like that. It makes it really difficult. Like I have to continuously press /who over and over again to see until they showed up, or I can say, "Oh, hey, are you in the channel yet? Okay, give me your ID. All right, that didn't work." There's a lot of frustration involved, and I feel like the other chat system was a lot easier. I could say, "Hey, everyone, meet in the channel. We'll see you there. We're gonna play some games. We're gonna have a good time." And that's not really something that's easy anymore, and that becomes frustrating for me.
And like you said, you did a lot of you took care to make it a very understandable statement. You're disappointed, but you're not writing death letters and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is a closed beta, and I think this is like the ultimate trump card to pull into every complaint. I understand that, so I'm not super interested in responding with this to every complaint, but I think it should be the backdrop to everything we're saying. Like, if we don't like chat, I don't know that we should call it lazy, which again, I understand you didn't necessarily say that, but like, understand that this is also in many ways them being like, what do you think of this? And everyone should be very comfortable in saying, I don't like this chat system. I preferred the older one. And if enough people say that, the capitalist ran Blizzard will be like, ding, 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 more people will be happier with the other system, will do that. But if people are like, well, you didn't spend any time on this. This is lazy and terrible, and this is a horrible chat system. Blizzard doesn't go, Jesus, Mike Morhaime, they just don't like it one bit at all. And he's not going to be like, oh, heavens to Betsy. They're going to read every comment where people are like, this is fucking terrible. And they're going to be like, you're crazy.
Oh,
Go back into the corner and buy the rest of our Blizzard games, you silly nutbag. And then they're going to go read the other more rational, calm comments that aren't at the top of Reddit, where it's like, they're like, Dear Blizzard, if you don't fucking act up and change your shit, I'll just buy CS:GO. All right, like those threads, those comments do nothing for them.
Mm.
The comments where people are like, "This is a closed beta. I have entrance. I don't like the chat. Here's why. I think you could do these things differently, and I really prefer the older system." That
Yeah, I feel
comment
like
goes somewhere.
I feel like it's just like give it a couple weeks and then see what happens. Like I'm personally like, I mean, as much as I don't play StarCraft 2 as much anyway, like I would be excited to see features coming from Heroes of the Storm over to StarCraft 2. I think that's a good thing because then any development that goes into that game can very easily be ported over to this one, in my opinion. But I mean, I would say like wait a little bit and see if the chat. I can't imagine that the chat in its current state is going to maintain or is going to be maintained like that for long. Like I imagine.
Oh no, they've definitely said publicly that they're gonna be working on it for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, and they just released a statement. Actually, someone's been spamming it. in
Zion
chat.
did. Yep.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
all right, let's move on to some other issues. Specifically, they were talking about the changes that they're going to be making, and a lot of people didn't like them. The one in particular being the ghost change, right? So the ghosts are going to release a
feel like-
little drone.
So kind of going along real fast, going along with the last topic and then going along with this one, because you kind of asked before, like in terms of like people being disappointed in Blizzard and like the posts, and then like Blizzard being like, well, hey, we're listening to your feedback, blah blah blah, and then like one of the things that you have to one of the things that a lot of people are not realizing, I think, is like when you go onto the StarCraft subreddit, there's like, and I think In Control kind of hinted at this. There's like a different fucking thing posted there like every single day. Like if we were to do like a Twitch play StarCraft balancing, you've got like for double harvesters, you've got like Lalicia's like 15 different compendiums on different things that need to be changed. You've got all sorts of people. I think the problem is that people are looking for that magic balance or tweak. They're looking for that one thing that's going to change, that's going to front page all of Reddit and get everybody playing StarCraft again. People are waiting for Davey to like move the bunker build time by 8 seconds and then to have like 4 million people want to play StarCraft. So I think that's where like a lot of the disappointment and whatnot is going to be. Like people are seeing like an upgrade change because if you look at like all of the things in StarCraft 2, like all of the comments in the StarCraft 2 subreddit about like balance changes, like it seems like everyone has this underlying tone of like, what do we need to do to make StarCraft 2 the most popular game in the world? Like this has to be changed so that we can be like Broodboard again, so that we can be the most popular game in the world. Like what like rather than like, okay, well, is this good? Does this make the game fun? Is this like good shit for the game? Blah blah blah. Everything has that undertone of like we need to find that one change, that one tweak that's going to put StarCraft back on top again. And I think that understandably, or maybe I don't know how you'd say it, but everybody's just kind of getting angry, like, oh, this one thing that got changed, or these changes, the Archon mode, it's not doing it. So I think that's where a lot of the disappointment comes from.
Yeah.
In terms of like the communication and all of that kind of stuff.
I think it's really important in order to be constructive to disconnect from that and to be just focusing on the idea of, okay, this particular piece of the game, is it going to make the game, does it make the game more fun? Does it make the game more interesting? Does it allow players to, show their skill? Does it have a low skill floor and a high skill ceiling? Like all the basic kind of stuff that we want for StarCraft to happen, and just focusing on that individually. And that's how I feel about there are too many abilities in StarCraft is just this overgeneralization of like there are too many abilities. It's like there are good abilities, there are bad abilities, there are abilities that contribute and that are fun, there are band-aid abilities, and there are, silly things, and discussing them individually and getting into specificity of the situation rather than just saying, oh, there's too many abilities, it's like a MOBA. Forget it. I'm not playing StarCraft. I think sort of the problem is that we need to get into the specificity of what's going on.
I think another problem, and this could maybe come down to PR, but I think another problem, and again, it's hard to get like a company, especially a company as big as Blizzard, especially when the front people don't have the authority to say these things, but it would be nice to like nail Blizzard down on some solid statements. Like people that are asking about things like, are microtransactions or skins or some ability, to dump more money into the game? Is that going to be something that's going to happen on release? Like, it's been, how long since Legacy of the Void has been announced? How long since the beta has been announced? There's no solid answers on that. Everybody's kind of like left in the dark. So does this mean Blizzard doesn't know yet, or Blizzard's still considering it, or they do know and they don't want to say? Like that kind of sucks. And then in terms of like major balance reworks, I don't know if I'm like part of the old crowd here that still thinks this, but I heard Nathanius give a rant on it a while ago. Is Protoss going to get that big redesign that at least a year ago everybody seemed to want? 2 years ago everybody wanted it, where a lot of people felt like Protoss was a fundamentally broken race, not overpowered or underpowered, but just badly designed, in terms of force field and massive AoE splash being the only gimmicks that, Protoss could fall back on. is that kind of a thing ever going to be addressed? It seems like Davies made a couple comments in the past. I remember there was an AMA where he said that they weren't going to entertain major changes, and then people were excited when Legacy of the Void came out because it seemed like they were going to do major changes, like we saw with the mining. But then, as Total Biscuits pointed out, it seems like they've kind of gone back on some of those major changes. So it's kind of like I think that a lot of it has come down to communication too, where it's like, well, what exactly are the intentions? It almost feels like you need like a I don't know, some PR person from Blizzard who's like insanely fucking blunt, who would never get the job as being PR, to say like, not doing this, we are doing this, like this is what's going to happen.
Well, has anyone ever? I mean, these guys have been interviewed. Jeff, I know you've spoken with these people. Has anyone ever seen an interview where someone just blatantly said, "Do you guys have any of these questions?" Put them in that yes or no spot.
What do you mean? Have they answered
like,
yes or no questions? Is that what you're asking?
Like, all right, so if you were to interview David Kim right now, and you're like, "Are microtransactions going to be in the game?" But prefacing it with something that's like, we've heard you say it's going to be addressed, but we need something more concrete. And then he says, "Well, I can't."
Those are so horrifically childish to ask someone in that position. Like, David Kim doesn't make that fucking decision. Kim Fan doesn't really make that fucking decision.
I say David Kim because that's the name that everyone goes to.
No, it's fine.
Even then,
I'm like trying to pin down like.
Let me use the best example possible. If you sit Mike Morheim down and you ask him that question, he doesn't have the ability to say, unless they've already announced it, he doesn't sit there and say, "Yes, you all get everything you fucking want." Like, he doesn't do that. He's the CEO and president of a gigantic company that has department heads, it has lawyers, and I know that, again, there's people like, "Oh, that's just a PR answer." It's like, no, it's a fact of life. They can't move autonomously like that and make a company-wide decision on something like that for a major game. StarCraft is one of their major games. All their games are major. Blizzard doesn't release iOS games, right? Like, yeah, they release big games. So that's part of the problem, and that's why it's like it's cliche to ask for sanity, but it's also like me trying to slip medication into people, because when you scream from the mountaintops these ridiculous things that they very obviously can't answer, and then you're like, "And now you won't even fucking give me a straight answer." It's like you're so far away from the actual conversation that they don't care. When you identify yourself as that completely uninformed, they're like, "Oh God, well, I mean, you're going to buy our game anyways, and you probably don't know how to operate an automobile. You're probably 13 years old. You're killing yourself from the conversation." So it doesn't mean you don't ask those questions. You do, but if you're demanding an answer from the wrong person and then you get upset about it, you're identifying yourself as an idiot. You're putting yourself out of the conversation.
I kind of feel like at the end of the day, like, who then does, like, that's kind of one of those questions where, like, who does the buck stop with? Like, well, you can't ask Davey about things like that. You can't ask Sion because he's not authorized to say. Like, you get into this weird thing where, and again, like, I agree with you. Like, Davey's not gonna have a fucking answer on microtransactions or anything having to do with the finance of StarCraft. Obviously, he probably doesn't even know. Like, he probably is not even that he's not privy to the information. He probably just doesn't even fucking know. But, like, at the end of the day, like, who does the buck stop with? Like, who do you actually ask for an answer, or how do you find out? Like, I'm not saying that these are, again, like, I'm not saying that these are legitimate reasons why people are angry. I'm saying that these are the reasons why people are probably upset, maybe. So it's like,
they're somewhere in the middle. They're not the right people to ask, but like I said, you should still ask them. And then the really cool companies, if they get asked those questions enough, will go out of their way to fucking answer it with the right person or something, Like, the questions should still be asked. What I'm saying is the reaction should be within the scope of reality. If David Kim can't tell you about microtransactions, don't get mad at David fucking Kim.
Yes.
If Blizzard gets asked in general, we would really like microtransactions or some communication about microtransactions,
right,
and they never say anything about it, then judge them off of that. I'm not saying don't be upset.
Right.
I'm saying be upset at the right agencies, like the right actors.
So that's,
I think too, there's a big difference between, like, giving a PR response that's, like, deflective and it's like, "Oh, I don't have authorization, I can't talk about this, but I have to answer it, so I'm giving you this PR response," and giving an answer to a question that's more nuanced than yes or no. Are there going to be microtransactions? It's like, it's a lot more complex than are there or are there not. You
Right.
know, that's something in the future. There's a lot of different moving parts that go into that. Is there a plan for microtransactions? Is it something that they want to do? It's like asking,
Yeah, but you
like,
have
what's
to be really
the,
careful. You have to be really careful with what you call a nuanced answer. Like that's like if my girlfriend were to ask me like, "Hey, do you want to go and see this really cool chick flick in the theater tonight?" And I'm like maybe it kind of depends on what's going on. Like that's not a nuanced answer. That's like trying to say no without actually saying no. Like there's a difference between giving like,
yeah, for sure.
an answer versus just kind of like skirting the issue and then making a bunch of generalized statements and
So
whatnot.
for 2 years, as long as I've been in the StarCraft community, so working on more than that, is I've seen people talking about wanting microtransactions, wanting these different little aspects being added into the game. And then, you read the history of the interviews and stuff where people say, that we're looking into it or things like that. And that's about the most you get is we're looking into it. And I think at this point, if it's been asked for this long and they don't come out, I understand why people are getting frustrated because no one's come out and actually said.
Yeah, but the problem is that the answer to that question is probably something that the company would never, ever, ever publicly say.
If
right?
it's
And
no,
the answer to that question, well, it's not that the answer isn't no. The answer is probably right now we're trying to decide if it's financially advantageous for us to invest, X amount of time into StarCraft to see if there's any kind of return on implementing these skins or these features. And right now it looks like the answer is no. Like if that's the actual answer, that's never going to be publicly said, for better for. And I understand that, right? Blizzard is not going to fucking say that. Like we don't think there's any money to be made in your game, so fuck off. Like that's like the meanest thing you could ever say. But
this is the thing, right? The Legacy of the Void campaign and all that stuff, a lot of people are going to buy it. People are going to buy the full game. Like in Blizzard's position right now, if I was Blizzard, I wouldn't implement microtransactions right now because I'm about to release a game for $60 that tons of people are going to buy. And I don't want to say ahead of time, oh yeah, you know what? We're gonna go to a more free-to-play model. You only have to pay $20 for the campaign. You pay $20 for the multiplayer stuff, and then everyone's gonna be like, oh well, I'm just gonna wait until that happens. I'm gonna wait till it goes free to play. I'm not gonna buy the $60 game or whatever. I think it only really makes sense financially for them to cash in on this old, antiquated, expansion monetization model first because they've already set it up. And they're going to make more money that way. And then afterwards, they'll be free to say, oh, yeah, you know what? Yeah, we are going to move to this, $10 for the multiplayer, $20 for the campaign, $5 voice packs, different things like that.
maybe that might piss a lot of people off. I don't know. I think you can I think you can go the microtransaction route without discounting the campaign. I've played both. I played the Heart of the Swarm and the Wings of Liberty campaign. I think both campaigns are worth the money. Then again, I mean, I like the Brood War campaign a lot too. So I wouldn't necessarily mind paying a full $60. Actually, I definitely wouldn't mind paying a full $60 because the fucking Blizzard art and shit is fucking awesome. And the campaigns have all played really well, even if the story kind of sucks. The campaigns still play really well. So I don't think paying a full $60 for the Legacy of the Void campaign and then doing like some kind of microtransaction stuff for the multiplayer is necessarily a bad idea. I don't think they would get fucked announcing that, but
yeah, if they
Yeah,
went for the
that's
campaign for the full $60, I just feel like if they're packaging the full game as like a $60 game, and then they say, oh yeah, well just campaign is $60 now, I think they'd have a lot harder time selling it.
yeah, maybe.
all right.
That's a
So,
good point.
Jeff, is there any way that the community leaders and all that can help drive the discussions in a more positive way than just the way these big negative outbursts we see? These little spurts. Is there a way that we can?
Yeah, Nathanius.
I mean, we're gonna have. I know. I watched that video. It's funny. He actually bemoans the entire design of Protoss, and I was like,
Fucking Protoss.
it's like a
Preach
feeding
it!
that fire, feeding that fire. But to be honest, these questions, not to toot my own horn, but I've been on shows like this for since 2010, very long time, and we've always had the same discussion. And I don't bemoan people for having an emotional response. Like that's pretty human and it's pretty normal. And for a lot of people, this is not their profession. This is part of their hobby, and it's only one of 5 games they play. So telling them no, don't hurt our community, and so to them it's like whatever. That was my response. I don't care. So I'm not super interested in judging an entire mass of individuals. And this is weird because I have done this in the past. I'm trying to become more adult, guys. I'm becoming much more ReDeYe than I have been. Is what I'm trying. I'm trying to become more. I'm trying to grow up. So these responses are dumb, and we can judge it. But at the end of the day, if asked, is there a policy we can implement to change this forever? It's like, no, not really. And the community is actually better off than it used to be. I remember back in Wings Liberty days and beginning of HOTS where people were like, well, so long, game. Fucking done. This is a dead game, and it's dead forever, and I'm never going to play it, and I hate it. And I hate Blizzard, and I hate everyone. And it's like, well, that was really dark, sad times. Now it's like we've kind of accepted that we're a smaller game. We've kind of accepted that we're not the big dog anymore. And I think people are starting to come around to it being okay, and that's still fun, and we still have a vibrant pro scene. We still have big tournaments. Fewer and less, but still good. And I think WCS has finally become something we can be pretty proud of, and there's still a Korean scene, and there's still a foreigner scene. Like, we have things to be happy with. So it's more like on shows like this, if given the opportunity, I'm going to speak out and be like, look, guys, when you act super hyperbolic, you become part of that senseless mob of people that nobody listens to. They just collectively go, you guys are all mad.
Mm-hmm.
And that becomes the only opinion that comes out of that. If you feel like, no, you don't understand. In my real life job, I'm a market analyst for this Fortune 50 company, and I'm really smart. And they're like, no. You attached a picture of a butthole in your tweet when you yelled, when you yelled at Dustin Browder, who's not even working on the fucking game, like you're an idiot. And they're like, no, I have a PhD. And they're like, shh, stop. You're 12 years old and you're an idiot. You might not even be a boy. Okay, stop. Like, I will always take that time to be like, hey guys, here's probably the better approach. And if 12 people hear me out and do a little bit better job of that, then I consider that a good day. But like, this is my community, these are my people, and I think they're moving in a good direction, but we're still fucking people, and we're still a massive people, and that means, if I stand up and drop the gauntlet on Steve and the drama bomb will go out, and then, that'll be that day. And it's just another day in StarCraft, but, we've learned and wisened up and we're moving on, and we hope that the masses do as well, but I don't judge them too much for it.
Sounds reasonable. So what about all right, so we discussed some of the bigger issues, that the issues with the community is happening. One thing that Blizzard said in their post today, David Kim made a post, is that they're going to try to start making more frequent communications with the community. And I think that's one of the bigger things that we've been asking for, and that will really help a lot. You're not going to please everyone. You're not going to please the people that enjoy getting off, that get off on hating Blizzard. But it's going to create less gaps for these kind of flare-ups to happen within the community, if we're getting more regular feedback, if we're starting to hear what's going on. One thing
I always think that's weird, though. It's like they've been doing so much feedback. Like, Scion has never been speaking to the community more. Cloaken is in every thread where his name is summoned. He's a little bit of like a total biscuit that way. Like, I don't know what the next tier is. Like, personal visits from I'm not
Actually,
okay,
I think
I'm not
they
going to be too hyperbolic, but I think they're doing a pretty good job, is I guess what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I think they kicked it up today specifically, though. You have David Kim in a Reddit thread responding about a particular question, and you've got Scion talking about the chat in a blue post. I think that more communication, more frequent communication, is something that obviously it drains on their resources, right? Because David Kim is communicating with us, then he's not designing the game. But I think that making a switch to more frequent communication and being more open about the process is great. And I think that they are taking a step to sort of kick it up to that next level.
Honestly, David,
when they had,
go ahead.
I was real quick. I was just gonna say when they had a lot of interaction with pros, one of the pros that they had a lot of interaction with and actually were talking to was a Velo guys. So I don't know that.
I think pros is a totally separate discussion, though.
I'm just saying I don't know that I want them to have too much. Without pro interaction, they came out with some pretty fucking good games. With some pro interaction, I'm okay with it. But like pros, oftentimes have a lot of times they have the worst opinion of the game. Actually, like they're very biased and
because
they're very polarized.
Play one race, yeah.
So
100%. I think there are people in the community who are like really who can be professional players and like play their race, but still like take a step back and say, okay, what's good for the game? And there are a lot of people out there like that. And I think it's just about Blizzard, filtering that out and listening to the right people. And obviously they do that already, I feel.
Yeah, and there was one thing, now that you're talking about discussing pros and their interaction with Blizzard, that was misunderstood, and I misunderstood it as well, and I had it clarified for me. It was clarified today in one of the posts, but earlier this week, I'd been thinking about the change that was suggested for the Ghost, and I was like, hey, I want to make some suggestions, so I talked to someone at Blizzard, and I'm like, hey, can I get added to that group so I can throw in my 2 cents? And, I had listened to what Nathanius had said and all that about, people their suggestions not being heard. I'm like, well, maybe I can pester some people. And when I did, they called me and they're like, hey, so there's been a huge misunderstanding about this group. This pro group that people talk about with Blizzard, it's not a forum for the pros to go and say, hey, I've been thinking about this and these are my thoughts. What it was created for is that if the developers need feedback or want feedback, they have an easy central location to go ask for feedback. It wasn't a suggestion box.
Two-way.
Exactly. So
it was Blizzard extracting information from professional.
I was a part of that group for HOTS.
Yeah.
It actually died. To be honest with you,
is somebody sleeping and snoring in the background? Can anybody else hear that?
I did hear something.
Okay, I didn't know.
I don't know what that was, but
it's right here.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh,
God. All right.
The most well-behaved dog on the show. But yeah, so there are a lot of the comments. Nathanius made a comment about that in his video, and that kind of just spiraled. And I've seen a lot of it echoed. Some of it's in the comments thread for today, so we're not going to address that. The question later we'll talk about. Now it's just that's the clarity on it, is that it wasn't a suggestion box. It was made for developers to have a way to get in touch with pros when they needed suggestions about a change they wanted to make or one they had already made. That was it. So this isn't Blizzard just sloughing off the pros that are trying to come to them with ideas. And I think that as far as Legacy of the Void, let's touch on Protoss real quick. The resident Protoss Jeff. Do you think that anything needs to be done to Protoss? Because one of his gripes was StarCraft's asymmetrical, right? We love it. That's what makes it beautiful. Not everything's the same. Not everyone has the same mechanics and functionality. But do you think that the race of Protoss, there's any validity to that idea that something needs to be tweaked fundamentally?
In Legacy of the Void, or you mean Nathanius' idea that they're poorly designed entirely?
That they're poorly designed entirely.
I think that question's it's an age-old question that I used to yell at Idra and other people for all the time, because let's say they're right. Let's take the best case scenario where Nathanius, sitting in his dwarven troll-like state late in the hours, and he just goes off on a random tirade about how poorly designed Protoss is. What's the end result with that? Does Blizzard go, you're right, guys, introducing the Xel'Naga. Legacy of the Void Protoss are gone. Xel'Naga comes out, it's a complete, no, it's not going to happen. So what is the point? What is at all the point in saying such a generic thing like they're poorly designed and we hate Protoss because there's some Protoss that take advantage of their poor design? Hello, excuse me, this is a fucking competitive game.
Well, I don't think Nathanius. I mean, he didn't do as good a job as he tried to do, but I don't think Nathanius was trying to demonize Protoss players. I think he specifically said that he's like, I don't blame Protoss players for taking.
He said he doesn't blame the players because they have to be competitive, but he said the reason people in general are salty about Protoss is because of the ones that abuse, is the word he used, and it gets thrown around all the time as if that means anything, and take advantage of the gimmick that is Protoss, another word that is always used.
Which you should. You should be abusing the shit out of everything that you have.
It's a terrible argument. But anyways, the brunt of my point, the main drive here is I am willing to give someone the benefit of the doubt and be like, you're right, Protoss is poorly designed. We agree. Now let's move on. Let's go to the things that actually will have an impact on real life, like given that they are poorly designed, if we go that far to say that. They're not going to change the entire race, so let's just talk about the things they will change to perhaps make it better. And in Legacy of the Void, in a lot of ways, I think they've done a pretty good job of that. It started off with Protoss being far and away the weakest race, and I still do think, to a certain extent, they are. But they're pretty close. The Colossus was a horrifically boring unit. They've all but removed it. They've put in a more micro-intensive disruptor. They've put in things like the Adept that have interesting abilities. I would argue that they're not super, super interesting. It's still just kind of a range tank unit that is really fucking good. So there's some change that needs to be had to that, but I think they're moving more in the right direction. And I've just never been interested in this idea. It used to be force fields. People didn't say Protoss, they said force fields. They're the worst game design ever. Well, you're not going to remove force fields unless you completely revamp the way Protoss is played entirely. Because has anyone ever seen Protoss without force fields? It's laughable. It's actually
I think that's the main bulk of that whole discussion, though, is that Protoss, to be a Protoss player, you're so reliant on force fields that it just sort of cuts down a lot of things. It also cuts down a lot of map design.
map design is a huge issue because of Protoss. Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
Real quick, we'll come back to a lot of this stuff, but ReDeYe's gonna have to go soon, and I want to milk him for all we can. So
Fair enough.
like
we're
it.
we're gonna move over to the comparing Blizzard and Valve. Real quick, ReDeYe, give us the history of Counter-Strike and the relationship with Valve as far as some issues that they've had and how they have responded and taken into consideration the community's feedback.
So I think you probably have to look back a little bit more towards Source. 1.6 was well developed by a core team and almost left alone for many years. So, it was what it was, and it was a great game. Towards the end of Source, CS Source's life, which was never the more popular one of the two, although still a great game in its own way, it got taken over by a company called Hidden Path, and I believe that they started to work on Counter-Strike Go as well at the beginning. And anyone that played that early Counter-Strike Global Offensive will tell you that it was not a good game. At best, I think you could describe it. I think Jeff had described it as being okay.
It was the only time I ever heard good things about Counter-Strike Source.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it actually it galvanized the Counter-Strike Source community into saying, well, hey, look at our game, it's quite good. Which is the first time I'd heard that in many years. So, it was a very interesting time early on. I played a lot of the alpha and the beta, getting on for 3.5 or 4 years ago now. It's been quite a long time. And it generally was a poor game. And it was because the original idea was they were going to get Xbox players to play it, and they were going to get PC players to play it, and they were going to bring those two worlds together, and we could finally have that argument of who's better, a controller or a mouse and a keyboard, and we'd finally settle that argument in favour of the guy that plays with the mouse and the keyboard, obviously, as being the better gamer. And that's what they were kind of selling it on. And that didn't really work out very well, and then it kind of got, okay, we're not going to do Xbox, we're just going to do PC, or we're going to make it really good for the PC. And then Valve took it back over themselves, and that's when things really started to change. But it still wasn't played by many. I think back in the early days, maybe 22,000 people playing at any one time, which is not many when you consider that, right now there's like 380,000 people searching for a game. So it was very small back then. But slowly but surely, Valve added some things in. And here's what's different. And I think this is an often... it's a misconception that a lot of StarCraft fans have. And that's that, Valve are brilliant, Blizzard are shit. And Valve listen to all of their fans, and Blizzard don't. And neither of those things are actually true. It's quite strange. Right. Somewhere in the middle is probably about right for both companies, in all fairness. And I've worked quite closely with both companies as well. Valve don't sit there all day reading the Reddit forums going, oh, God, that guy's right. We should definitely change that part of the map. Or, you know what, he's right. We should definitely nerf the AWP and make it much harder to... They don't do that, all right? It's just, it might seem like that occasionally because there are so many shitposts about the AWP that eventually one of them must have some sort of relation to something that Valve do in an update. And so that's why sometimes it feels like, to other communities looking in, if you like, that actually Valve listen all the time and they do everything exactly the way the community wants it. It's absolutely not true. I can guarantee that anyone from Valve, if they're honest enough, will tell you the same thing. That said, they are very good at listening to a broad base of opinions and seeing trends and figuring out, actually, is this becoming a bit of a problem? I'll give you a great example. Over the last few months, or the last 6 months, smurfing has been a really big issue in Counter-Strike. And for those that aren't aware, the smurfing stuff is basically that you have 18 different ranks in competitive play, and of those ranks, at the very high end, I would say probably the top 4 or 5 ranks, if they play any of the mid-skill guys or the low-skill guys, you get absolutely ruined. To coin a phrase from Nathanius, wrecked Areno badly. And so what happens is that for whatever reason, and some of this is legitimate reasons, but some players at the higher level get bored of being beaten at a higher level because they're not quite good enough to play at that level. So they like dropping down a few levels. So they'll buy a new account. It's very cheap sometimes, or they can buy one off eBay for a $5, and it will be a gold 4 or a silver 3, and they play with that. And they play against other players that are supposedly the same level, but of course they aren't, and they absolutely destroy these players. Now, I've been on the other end of that. I've been a mid-skill player who's then been on the end of this smurf who comes in, drops 50 bomb, and ruins your game. He absolutely ruins your entire game. and that's not very nice. It's not a very nice experience, and it's become a bit of a problem over the last 6 months. And so Valve haven't publicly gone out there and said, you know what, you guys are right. Smurfing is evil, and we'll stamp it out next update. They've never said that. But there's an implicit kind of acceptance that they understand after 6 months of everyone whining about it, this must be an issue. And so they've addressed it in the latest patch. Now, I'm not saying they've addressed it and it's solved everything, because that's impossible, but they've done something in the new patch which now makes it much harder for a guy to go out and buy a blank account and then immediately use it in competitive mode. He now has to spend 6 to 8 hours leveling it up to level 3 to be able to go and play competitive, and most Smurfs are not going to waste their time doing that anymore. It's just pointless for them. So there's a good example of Valve listening, generally listening, not specifically listening to every single post, but generally listening, and then reacting to it, and they'll make further tweaks to that over the next few months. I'm absolutely sure of that. And so, in isolation, that's a very good example of what they do. But is that any different to what Blizzard do? Really?
Right.
Not really. I don't think it is. They may be a little bit more communicative sometimes, but then there are less Valve staff commenting on Reddit threads than there are Blizzard staff on threads on StarCraft. So I'm not sure you can have your cake and eat it here. You can't be a bitchy moaner and complain that they don't give you any love and don't respond to anything when you've got David Kim replying, Sion replying, and other people from Blizzard replying. I've dealt with these people on a daily basis in the past, and I can tell you they do care. They do want to get the game better. They do care about the community. They do care about what people say, but they might not always be able to sit out there and say that.
I do think,
and
though,
sometimes
that
maybe they should, I guess. But we all talk about this hashtag passion thing, and we judge people by whether they're in or out of the game. And again, it's very black and white. Someone said to me the other day, "Oh yeah, you don't do StarCraft 2 anymore. You don't care about the game." Well, I don't host the game anymore. I still watch GSL. I still watched SOS being a right idiot this morning. Does that make me? Am I outside of the game now? Am I an outcast, or am I Mad Max, or what? What am I? I don't know.
Go ahead, JaKaTaK.
It's a strange phenomenon to deal with, and we don't necessarily have that in the Counter-Strike scene.
I think that a lot of that sort of implicit, like, they've heard us and they're going to do it, come from the fact that I think that Blizzard take longer to adjust. I think they're a less agile company than Valve as far as making adjustments, making changes, and things like that. I think it's something they've really improved over the course of StarCraft 2, being more agile, being more responsive with changes and problems. But you go back to the amount of time that there was Broodlord, Broodlord Infestor and all this kind of stuff, and the amount of the whole like 8 or 9 months where the Swarm host games were ridiculous, and the amount of time that it took for those changes to go into place. So I would say that.
I agree with that, JaKaTaK, but do you not think that, and this is no derision on Counter-Strike, but do you not feel that StarCraft 2 is such a much more complex game and therefore takes much more thought to try and make these balance changes? I mean, Valve, I'm sure, test all of these balances internally, but sometimes they kind of just go, we have to release this to see what effect it has in the game, and it's not going to break the game quite as substantially, say, as a major change to one unit of a race, which completely disrupts the entire game. I think the StarCraft guys have to spend more time thinking about it.
Yeah, I
don't know
definitely
if
agree.
Okay.
I definitely agree that it's a more complex game, but and we've had discussions about this before too, where it's like it's really, really difficult to figure out what the effect of, because it's such a complex game, what the effect of a major change is going to be without widespread testing. Like PTR, getting stuff in the PTR is it's almost never enough. Do you know one of the full effect of what's going on,
One of the most astounding answers I always get from developers is this. I often ask them, they make this game, and this isn't just Blizzard, this is any developers, they've made this really cool game. They've played it internally to death. They think they know everything about the game and how you can play it and what you can do in it and everything. And then they release it, and then the players do some stuff that they weren't expecting, right? And they fix that. And then the pro players, and I'm talking about the 0.1% of the players in the world that play the game, who are phenomenally talented at it, do things that they had no idea were possible. Absolutely no idea. And then suddenly they're faced with having to balance a game where 0.1% of the player population is able to do things they hadn't considered, that if they make changes to, affect the 99.9% of the other player base. And that must be really hard.
Oh yeah,
I don't think we give him enough credit for that.
Totally agree. Yeah, I think that's a really good point to bring up in general. I think it's a very difficult thing, but I do think that more agility and faster reaction to change and problems is something that's been happening, and I hope that it continues to happen. I hope that Blizzard continues to become more agile and more responsive.
All right. Now that I have you, before you have to go, do you still have a couple more minutes, ReDeYe?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
All right, awesome. Let's talk about the YouTube streaming platform. So,
Yes.
Oh my god. Did you see that thing I tweeted?
can we get some specificity, please?
About the YouTube gaming platform, the topic that you just brought up?
No.
Sounds like a no. Hold on. This video. This is like the highest quality anything. I actually I'm getting like a big chubber right now just looking at this. Just watch this, like a minute clip or whatever, but like, look at this, on 60 FPS, 1080p, it's fucking flawless. I can't stream at 60 FPS at 720p on a 5960X with a $1,500 capture card and have it not pixelate as much as this. And this is 1080p, 60 frames a second. This looks fucking beautiful. Holy fuck. It's like it's actually like mind-boggling. Like, this quality right here is better than some people's PCs can actually play the game at 60 FPS. Like, this is fucking crazy.
All right, hold on.
Holy shit. I couldn't believe it when I saw this.
Yeah, it is. I think for us, it's basically viewing porn.
Like, this is like
for broadcasters,
almost,
it is just so good.
This is like almost game quality, like almost running on your PC. Like,
and do you know what? Do you know what's really funny about this as well? I don't want to shit on them particularly, but Hitbox put out a tweet on Monday saying that they were going to announce 4K streaming.
Okay.
And for anyone that doesn't know, 4K streaming is still a long way off.
Yeah.
It's not a long way off in terms of technical ability to do it. I mean, Gfinity, we have the ability to do it in the sense that, we have 4K equipment. All our Blackmagic stuff is 4K. All of our Sonys are 4K, and we can produce stuff in 4K and save it in a file.
You use Blackmagic?
Yeah. So it's all possible. But
I play
but
Warhammer with the vice
it?
president of that company.
Really?
Do you really?
Funny. Yeah, it's funny.
My
yeah, and we couldn't stream it. It's absolutely almost impossible to stream it for us, to stream it out. And even if we could stream it out, and I'm guessing we probably could actually if we were clever about it. Not many people can actually receive it. That's the other point. You need 20 megs solid, 20 meg down, uninterrupted, not with an internet page open or your Winamp playing shit or downloading. You need 20 meg to get it.
And that's not even 20 meg down. You need 20 down with 20 meg of perfect routing to
Indeed. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
No,
and that's the bare minimum to get 4K. So we're a while away from that, but that 1080/60 is absolutely gorgeous. It's easily the best I've seen so far. And so to get back to the whole YouTube gaming stuff, we've been speaking to them for a little while, so we kind of knew it was coming. I actually had a meeting with YouTube's guys on the Thursday before they announced it on the Friday, so they were they were really sort of pumped about all the announcements and stuff that they had coming, and it's very, very interesting to listen to the guys talk about it and how excited they were. I think it kicked off, and it was quite funny. Their tweet was, a new player has entered the game.
Yeah.
And Twitch replied, welcome, player 2. Add us on Google Plus, Kappa. Which I thought was brilliant. It was brilliant. I thought it was
Google buys 50 million different things. A lot of them don't work out, but the things that stick really well.
It was still a good tweet. It was still a good tweet.
It was just a nice bit of friendly banter. I also saw Ryan tweet when Twitch went down for about half an hour during E3. Someone tweeted at Ryan from YouTube and said, he, look at Twitch, they've gone down. And Ryan replied something like, don't worry, they just player 1 just needs another quarter for the machine. So so obvious banter going on. But that aside, I think it's don't get me wrong, I love what Twitch have done over the last 4 or 5 years. From very humble beginnings, I remember DJ Week doing 50 FPS webcam streams for shows back in 2009, 2010 on what was Justin TV back then. Sitting there thinking, this is madness. How is he even doing a show on this rubbish platform? But he had the faith. He stuck with it. He was one of the early guys, and eventually they gave him 30 FPS on a webcam, and then it grew into the early days of Twitch, and we know the rest. But so I have a massive respect for Twitch. I don't think we will be where we are in esports without them right now. But that said, I think competition is very healthy, and I'm glad that YouTube have come along. I'm glad that they're supported by Google. I'm glad in a way that Google missed out on getting Twitch. And now it's Google versus Amazon and Twitch versus YouTube, and I think that's only healthy. It's only healthy for us as viewers, as streamers, and as broadcasters at events like Gfinity. I think it's only healthy for all of us, and I think it'll make both companies better as well.
I could not agree more. I think a monopoly is one of the worst things you could have in any field, and Twitch, although technically did not have a monopoly, pretty much had a fucking monopoly.
Yeah, I mean, when Owned went down, they pretty much did.
And even Owned was so poorly ran that it became pretty clear that they were a contender, but they didn't actually have the money to contend. They just told people they had money to contend.
I'm not even sure if I would agree with that. People forget, but Twitch used to have a lot of problems. Like, in the days of Owned versus Twitch, Owned wasn't like this big jokester that was a huge fucking joke. Like, Twitch had... I don't know if you guys remember... Well, no, of course you guys remember this. Remember how horrible it was if you were from Europe and you tried to watch... That was, like, Owned's biggest thing. You could not watch Twitch if you were in Europe. It was horseshit, and people complained all the fucking time about shit like that.
And still Twitch killed them. I mean, I don't disagree with you. There was always problems, and that, this happens. We're all discussing things, but I wasn't cut off just before I was about to say Twitch is perfect. I was cut off just before I was going to say monopolies are bad. Nothing about problems. Like, Twitch has absolutely had its problems. I am excited for an absolute legitimate competitor in YouTube. I hope it's legitimate, by the way. They've already actually... Remember a year and a half ago or something like that? They actually already stepped into streaming. They didn't get into the personal streaming. They did LOL and stuff like that.
If you watch their streams, the quality is actually very, very good. It always has been.
Good.
I've watched League of Legends World Championship on YouTube before, and the quality is absolutely terrific. So that part of it, I think the technology part of it, they've always had in the background. They've always done really well. And if you talk to the YouTube guys, they're always blowing their own trumpets about how many billions of minutes they get watched every month, and that's great. But actually, what I was interested in more was a better UI, a better experience, a better way of finding stuff. And actually, I'm still not finding that, I have to say. And Ryan will kill me for saying it, but I went to YouTube during E3, and my homepage loaded up, and I was like, where are all the live streams? Where's my gaming tag? Why? I've subscribed to gaming, so why am I not getting any gaming live stuff? That's really weird. So there's still some work to do, but it is better.
I'm excited for what's to come, and I mean that even from the Twitch perspective. Like, my wife works for Twitch. I'm waiting on a contract for Twitch, and I have been since EG was bought. Like, assuming I will be working for Twitch as well. I say this, and if I'm an owner of Twitch, I probably wouldn't. I would agree at this point, but I wouldn't say it because I'd rather just have more money. But it's good. It's the scene divided, and both of them innovating and motivating themselves to improve is better for these two companies, and it's better for everyone in between. Like, there will be lines drawn in the sand. There will be people signed to one or the other. There'll be people advertising the other. And then the two of them are going to look for ways to one-up the other. And it's not going to be through corporate espionage and assassins. It's going to be through our product is fucking better. We are producing a better stream. We have more incentive to stream with us. And, like, in the past, with Twitch, and I say this, and I know the people that run Twitch intimately. Like, they're friends of mine, and they're good people. But they were running out of... I mean, it's not so hyperbolic, but in a lot of ways, they didn't have as much motivation to really innovate. Like, if someone was like, hey, this problem on... Like, you're logging me out all the time, and it's really annoying, and I can't change what game I'm broadcasting, and then all my viewers bitch and complain about it. It makes streaming a big headache. They're like, yeah, we're aware of it. We'll fix it when we can. But now... If YouTube's breathing down their neck, and those kind of problems are literally some of the ways that people do the basic math of, like, which one is better, guess what? That fucking problem is fixed like that, okay? It doesn't go on for literally a year, and they're like, I don't know how to fix that. They do. Yeah. They just didn't work on it because it wasn't a priority. But now with YouTube, it will be, and I think that's a better world. It's just a better world.
Yeah. No, I think, you've got MLG, YouTube, Twitch, obviously, and then Azubu is still sort of floating around in the background as well.
I would take a breath between that. I wouldn't even bring it up.
I did take a long breath. It maybe wasn't long enough.
A competitor to anything.
And Hitboxer as well. I mean, Hitboxer is still making lots of PR noise, but I haven't really seen I don't think the experience is as good as Twitch or YouTube for that matter right now. But it's great to have plenty of players in that world, that's for sure. And they all want to do a great job. They all want to deliver, terrific services to us and to their streamers and to the broadcasters. So I agree with Jeff. I think it's only healthy. I'm really looking forward to the next 12 months. I think, never before in the history of esports, of being involved in it for the last 13 years, can I remember heading into a fourth or fifth consecutive year where we were looking even more positive than we were the previous year. It's not happened. We usually have this ebb and flow of esports where we have a couple of great years and we have this cool CPL World Tour and it's $1 million and there's mainstream TV and MTV come along and they want to cover it and that's brilliant. We're all massively excited, and then the following year the CPL dies and the World Tour doesn't exist and there's no $1 million prize funds and the games are shit and no one from mainstream could give a shit about esports. And then the following year another company come along and they go, yeah, let's put $50 million into a new TV show, and we're like, oh, holy shit, we're back, awesome, great. And that lasts for a couple of years and then that fucks up and dies and goes elsewhere and we all lose our jobs again and we start from the bottom again. And that has been the kind of perpetual motion of esports for the last decade until 3 or 4 years ago. And we've only seen growth in the last 3 to 4 years, and we're going to see it again this year and again next year and again the year after. And now mainstream projections are that this is going to be a $2 billion business within 2 years. So, for the first time, really, I've stopped being skeptical about esports having that. I've been waiting for that. Okay, we're going to have another doldrum year or two. It's coming, and it's going to be even bigger a fall this time. And I've stopped worrying about it now. I don't think it's coming.
So
No, yeah, I agree.
I have two final thoughts I want to hit on. First one's for Steven. Going into, I thought I heard this on Twitter or something like this. I can't remember, but there was something about not needing to carry over your viewership from Twitch to YouTube. There's something YouTube was going to do to take that out of the equation. Now, this is actually for anyone. Does anyone heard about that or know what I'm talking about?
I only heard that they were not going to turn off the notifications for Twitch when you go live.
Okay.
I didn't hear that they were going to be able to find some way of taking your subs or your followers from Twitch, but I don't know how they would do that.
Okay, Steven, you have a follower base on YouTube, and I'm assuming that if you start the gaming, that you can use your already video subscribers.
Yes, you can
for
do that. Yeah, you can.
Okay, so Steven, you have a shit ton of followers on your YouTube channel. Are you gonna consider switching over once they come out? Or are you gonna wait for people to do it, see what happens? Or are you gonna try to jump on it quickly?
For me personally, that's a really scary. I've been trying really hard over the past few years. I finally got a fucking premium partnership on Twitch. Like, rebuilding relations with Twitch to switch to YouTube would be absolute suicide in terms of the bridges that I've rebuilt with Twitch.
It would be declaration, yes. Like, that's the kind of fun thing. Make no mistake, if you go from Twitch to YouTube and you're a big streamer, you're not going to get like a mail. You're not going to get something in the mail that's like, we're at war, but you're out. You're the enemy.
I think that, so here's the thing. I mean, this is only kind of speculation and a little bit of knowledge, which can sometimes be dangerous. But I don't think YouTube are going to go after big streamers that are on Twitch right now for exclusivity. I don't think they're going to do it. I think they're going to give the option if people want to stream on YouTube at the same time as they stream on Twitch. I think that's probably what they're going to go for. The downside to that, of course, is that Twitch may not want them to do that, especially if they've already been signed to an exclusive. So.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So first of all, if you're anybody on Twitch in terms of like you've got subscriptions and shit and commercials, you're already signed to an exclusive contract as part of being on Twitch. A second thing there is, even if YouTube or Google, I guess I should say, doesn't go after streamers in particular, the aspect of streaming on YouTube will become leverage for some people. So Soda Poppin' or these other huge fucking streamers that get 10,000+ viewers depending on what they do. Well, now that premium partnership that's a 70-30 sub split, well, hey Twitch, maybe I want to go stream on Google. Like, can you offer me an 80-20 sub split? Like, I think that there might be some competition that occurs there, even if YouTube doesn't explicitly go after people, because now the threat of switching to another platform can be used as leverage. Not that I would ever advocate that, because Twitch is the coolest people ever, of course. Yeah. But I'm saying theoretically, like there's a whole lot of shit that goes into there. It's interesting because now like Twitch is like. The relationship that you have with Twitch now is so important. Whereas it used to be that, especially, like 3 or 4 years ago, Twitch really needed those big streamers. Like, it was really, really important. Like, it was a very, without sounding like really salty, I guess it was a really symbiotic relationship. Like big streamers on Twitch was really good for Twitch, and then Twitch doing good was good for big streamers. But now Twitch is like some serious fucking shit. Like Twitch is hosting TwitchCon, Twitch is showing up at places like E3 and PAX and all these huge fucking places. And now being on good terms with Twitch is, I don't want to say vital to your career as a streamer, but it's a definite plus. It could be a huge boost because now you have the opportunity to go and be big people at these conventions to form more connections and whatnot too. So I feel like being really in and having those networks built with Twitch is like really important to your career as a streamer. And again, going to YouTube would like really fuck that up. I think if you were trying.
I think the other thing to consider with all of this as well is that we often talk about gaming and streaming as if it's colloquial, and actually it's a little bit more diverse than that. I mean, Twitch is very heavily influenced by esports, whereas YouTube is much more casual gaming as well as just general gaming. So I think they're very different platforms anyway. I'm not entirely certain that YouTube is setting out there going, right, we're going to dominate esports streaming. That's what we're going to do. I think they've gone out there and gone, we're going to dominate gaming streaming. And to them, that's probably a little bit different than the way we look at it. I think Twitch is very much the home of esports right now, in the sense that a lot of the esports players and streamers are on Twitch. And I'm not so sure that will change.
Well, yeah. Well, I think
I'm
the main
convinced.
the people that are going to start streaming on YouTube gaming are going to be maybe smaller streamers who might be able to get a better deal with YouTube, and primarily YouTubers that have a really big YouTube following base that if they started streaming, they wouldn't be able to bring all those YouTube followers there. But if they integrate it in the right way so that they can bring their YouTube following into their stream, then I think that's going to be like the main bulk of the start of YouTube streamers.
Yep. ReDeYe, one last thing before we go into break. Is there anyone on the back end of YouTube, any big names that you can tell us about that are going to give YouTube a leg up, in this industry? I mean, obviously, they have a leg up being a Google-backed company, but
Yeah, sure. Well, the main guy I've dealt with and got a lot of respect for is Ryan Wyatt. If you've followed Call of Duty in the past, you'll know him as Wiz. Very, very popular guy, very eloquent in the way that he speaks about things. He has a very level head on him. He has the ear of the president at YouTube as well. So I feel like he's got a big part to play in the way that gaming side of YouTube is perceived and looked at over the next couple of years. So I think his role is probably the most key. And he's got a few of his old mates around him as well. I think it's always the way. I think many people call it the old boys club, but I think when you've worked with people that you trust and you understand what they can deliver, I think it's probably easy to work with those people. So he does have a really good team behind him. So I'm just really excited. Like Jeff said earlier on, I think competition is fantastic, and I think it's great for Twitch as well as it is for YouTube.
all right. Well, we're going to go to break. ReDeYe, you won't be joining us when we come back from the break, so you want to tell everyone what's going on with you? Do you have any big events coming up with Gfinity?
Yeah, so we basically have 14 events in the next 15 weeks. God help me. What is a weekend? Who needs weekends anyway in your lives, right? We're doing a mixture of all sorts of games. So we have some FIFA, Hearthstone, StarCraft 2's coming up. This weekend we have the launch of the EU Pro League for Call of Duty on Xbox as well. First time ever, which is great. And also we have a very big Counter-Strike tournament coming up for $80,000 as well. The big teams will be there as usual. And that carries on all the way through the summer, and we're obviously in the Gfinity Arena in London. So those will continue over the summer and into early September. And then we've got some really big plans for next year, which I can't talk about right now, otherwise I get fired. But they are massively exciting. I've had a big hand to play in that, which is one of the things that I moved to Gfinity to do. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing what the reaction is from the communities when we announce that later on in the year.
Awesome. Well, it's been great having you on the show as always.
Thank you. Always a pleasure.
Yeah. And so, guys, we're going to be right back. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll take your questions. In the Reddit thread, you go to the front of the page of Reddit right now, reddit.com/r/StarCraft. You'll see the late game post and post any questions you want to do, and we'll answer those. We'll also talk about community upcoming events, and then we'll wrap things up. So we'll talk to you soon.